Well, hello, friends. Welcome to our podcast, From Busy to Rich. It's a podcast designed to inspire advisors to increase their profitability and quality of life for them and for those that they serve. My name is Justin Lake, and with me always, your host, Wes Young. Now, today we have a special guest with us that has some unique experience. We actually had a great talk before the session, and I know you guys will get to enjoy it, those of you listening. So, Wes, and I know we've got an interesting topic, and I'll let you make the introduction of that. So why don't you kick it off with, what are we going to talk about today? And then who is this other gentleman, this handsome gentleman? And for those of you watching on the YouTube video, and those of you who don't get to see, he is quite handsome. So he adds to our overall number here. I'll let Wes kick it off.
No, well, Justin, I'm super excited about today. We've got one of my very best friends on the podcast, Deb Warren, and I've known Deb for about 25 years. And when I ask him to share his background, I'm going to ask him to censor a lot of the things that stories he could tell. Because we basically grew up together in a lot of ways, both just young guys trying to figure out the way forward, and then as we've gone through several iterations of just business development and growth, and continue to make a great friendship all on the way. And he's an extraordinary talent. We still do work together in a variety of different capacities today. But when I was thinking about him on the podcast, I was actually listening to an audio book. That's a great one, and we can link to it in the show notes for everybody. But Jamie Kern Lima, she's written a book called Worthy. And just a quick deal on her. She sold a cosmetics company to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion with a B in 2016. So a lot of cool stuff to say, but she has this chapter in the book, and I thought, that is it. That is what we're going to theme this whole podcast around. And it's called, You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. And as I was thinking about it, there was a German philosopher, the quote that came to mind, Arthur, and I'm probably going to mess up the saying of his last name, but Schaffenhauer. And once he says, all truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And third, it's accepted as being self-evident. And so having a front row seat to get to observe some of the work Deb does with people that own businesses, and I'm going to have him give you a little more of his background in a second. But advisors, if you're listening to this is going to be really one of those key things. And I know you hear us all the time talk about normalizing new, challenging your normal with new ideas that seem disruptive, maybe even seem crazy to you. Just know it's not that it's crazy; it's just first to you. It's the first time you've heard it, because I've watched Deb go in to businesses where people have reached a plateau. And it's kind of where they've reached a place of owner operator status, and they are more successful than anybody they know. But they're reaching a place of stagnation as far as where they can go from there. And some of the principles and ideas and really just levers that he teaches them to pull, not only put them in a position where if they wanted to, they could sell that business because it's got so much value independent of their own human capital. But many times they opt not to, because they're enjoying the journey again. They've reached that place where now they're more operator, they're more entrepreneurial value creation. And so I'm going to ask him to talk a lot about those things today. But first, Deb, hey man, just thanks for being on the show today. We're so excited to have you.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you censoring the first 10 years or so of that relationship. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a different podcast for the early
No, it's not.
Of
Go to the world.
And so, and we may, in some people's eyes, I don't know, lose or gain credibility. It just kind of depends on the person listening. You can do this too. Is kind of the idea. Deb, I'd love it if you could just give kind of a background of kind of what things are like for you today. The kind of business that you're in, which is, I know you got your hands in many, Dev's an entrepreneur, investor, but he also has a real skill for the kind of specific work that he does day in, day out with business owners. And then also what things were like way back when, like how'd you get to where you are? What did you do to evolve to where you are? And then we can kind of get into some of the ideas that will be, I think, instantly actionable for a lot of people listening today.
Sounds great. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's cool to be in there. And thanks for Justin for telling everybody that I'm handsome. I hope the nobody's watching YouTube. So thanks.
Yeah, it's a mystery. You got to get on YouTube and watch it. You
No,
can't just
don't.
listen to
It's
the
okay. Just imagine me, looking like Justin. It works. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm going to start back a little bit because it's funny, is the book that you chose, the title of that, hit very home as I heard you say that, is Worthy. And when I look back at my career, I've been beyond blessed at having a whole bunch, not a whole bunch, but some very significant individuals who gave me opportunities I hadn't earned yet and, truly wasn't worthy of. So I had to earn those within their realm, and they gave them to me and saw something inside of me that they wanted to develop. And that set of blessings of those people in my life from, where you and I met with Morris, that was a guy who saw something in a college kid who, enjoyed life more than he should and really gave me some development that I certainly hadn't earned and probably wasn't worthy of yet, that really shaped my career along the way and shaped some good opportunities. And I had another one, a gentleman by the name of Ted Noor, who puts, myself and another guy basically in charge of Fairchild Aircraft when we were in our early 20s and, had never, Kevin had a lot better background than I did in the 2 years more than he had out of school. But he took a chance on something and, figured out what we were really good at and put us into a field of business that we had no experience in, either one of us at all. We'd never either one touched aviation in the slightest, but we had a skill set that we could bring in and help those that had been in there for their entire careers. And Ted had recognized that in us, gave us an opportunity, and that shifted into an amazing growth curve that has, continued on throughout my career. Interestingly enough, is I look at each company that I've been involved in, every client that I've had the opportunity in, and the overarching theme was it was somebody very special who had a great skill set, who was looking to the outside for somebody to help guide a certain part of their business, their life, or some portion of that. And, really my skill set that I've learned to work within is understanding that very quickly and then finding the right people within the network to help them get to where their dreams are. And, ultimately shifting those dreams. And you talk about coming from somewhere as, my goal when I had left high school was to, be able to afford a double wide someday on the farm and, have a $6,000 pickup. Like that was in the scope of the world I lived in, success.
Mission accomplished too, Dev. You've surpassed your dream.
2 double wides, buddy. That's
Yes.
where we're at now. So. But we laugh at that, is that every one of us, everybody that I've ever worked with has had a vision for themselves at some point in time that they've now just blown past. Like they look back at that and go, oh my gosh, like it's almost embarrassing that was my dream for myself. And I think that's important for people that are starting out to understand your dream that you have for yourself today will somewhere down in your career path look back and you'll be like, wow, like that, I'm glad I had that dream at that point in time, but wow, my life has been, on such a different trajectory and a different path and different blessings and different people around me that all of that culminates into a new dream that they've had and probably 10 in the meantime. And so, as I get to where I'm at today, we invest in businesses. I have a company called Ascendant Advisory with, probably one of, the most dependable, loyal, brilliant human analysis people in the world. And my partner, Tom Barker, in it. And Tom is, he was a 21-year SEAL and got his MBA and learned this business very quickly over the last 3 or 4 years to the point that he can now go into almost any business in the world and analyze and provide value in helping them achieve that goal. So it's not really complicated what we do. It's basically, we figure out what the vision of the individual is, both personally and professionally, and we help guide them to that next level of the dream and then help them reset the dream when the time's right to reset the dream. And a lot goes into that, but that's a very basic overview of what we do with companies and people. And we separate it in that, we're here for the life cycle of the business. We're also here for the life cycle of the entrepreneur. And those don't always have to be touching each other, and they don't always have to look like they did when the business was formed 5, 10, 20 years ago.
Love that. And one of the themes that we talk about on the show a lot here is helping people create a life they don't want to retire from. And it's one of those consistent themes where that as the work you do, which is what it so synergizes with that all the time, is really helping people to understand, hey, just because you've always done it this way doesn't mean that that's what a rich life looks like to you over the next 3 years or 5 or 10. So let's have some fun and explore. Let's actually take you to a place and remove the limits that, whether you've inherited those limits, and a lot of us have inherited a way forward, like you said, when your biggest dream was, man, I see my double wide and my pickup truck. I remember as an electrician thinking, man, if I could just make enough money to eat lunch out every day and not have to bring my tuna fish and my Snickers bar and my Sprites in my Igloo cooler, man, how cool. I would have made it at that point. And then having people that just show you, hey, you're at a place where you get bigger vision. And one of the things I've noticed about you, Dev, and I'd like you to just kind of talk about this for a minute, that I see you do, and you, because it was clearly done with you, is this idea of giving the people that you're with rope before they know exactly what to do with that rope. It's like you like you said early on, came in, and it's like, he's like, okay, well, here's your opportunity to go figure it out. Now, again, there is a limit to the rope at the beginning so that they don't fall and hurt themselves. But at the same time, some people, that process of giving them the rope and the confidence they have and saying, hey, go try stuff out, go try it on, is immensely powerful. And as I watch you work with not only the business owner to help them understand, hey, let me just give you some rope to do some new things that maybe you think are crazy, but it's just new to you. It's just first. And also, here's where you need to give some rope to your people. I just want you to talk about that for a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I do remember when you were trying to figure out how to be an electrician like that. More importantly, you forget your goal was to not shock yourself any more than twice a day.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Very glad you found this calling. It's a much better fit for you.
Yes. Yes.
But no, I look at that. I look back at some of the advice I got along the way, and it's very interesting. When I went to work with Fairchild Company, M7, Ted told me, he goes, I'll fire you for 2 things. He says, I'll fire you for moral and ethical issues. So just be a good person and don't screw up. And number 2, I'll fire you for being right 100% of the time. And that's a very empowering. It's very scary, by the way, but it's very empowering in that he says, I expect my decision makers within their realm and their guardrails. We always call it the guardrails. The rope is always a little scary because falling over a guardrail usually doesn't just, cut off the air to your head, but the rope can. So we don't want to get too far out on that idea that you can, ruin everything by going too far. But, guardrails are a bouncing area that you stay between. The idea being is that you need to be right 70% of the time. And he always said, you should get 40 to 60% of the information and then follow your gut. If you have to get more than 60% of the information, it's probably not an idea that you should pursue, because if that doesn't get you to where you can make a decision on it, it's probably too complicated for you, or it's, too risky of a concept. You make that decision. And by the way, when you're wrong on that 30% of the time, accept it, own it, and change course quickly. Don't ride it into the ground. And we see that with owners that, they'll have 4 divisions of a company that they've started, and they've had opportunities through the years, and 3 of them are amazing. And one just sucked the life out of everything else. And man, they are going to ride that to the ground because they committed to it.
Yeah.
I love entrepreneurs that they're so committed that they should be committed. We try to help them back away from that. That, hey, it's okay to say that one was a bad idea. There's a gentleman that we were talking to, we just were talking to beforehand. He had 3 businesses, and he figured out that one of them was his passion and the other 2 were just good businesses. And so sold one and shut one down. And now he's doing the one that his passion is. He's loving life. He's tripled the size of it in the amount of time it would have taken for the other ones to, double. And he's focused on what he loves. And that's the thing as entrepreneurs that we forget over and over and over again, is you have to love what you do. And when you said that you'll never quit, we never are going to quit doing it. My greatest sin as a human being is I love being at work as much as I love being at home with my family and my boys.
Yeah.
And so I try to bring them into work so I can share the 2 of them, and I mix it way too much. because I want to do it till the day I die. I
Yeah.
love, like, I would die if I couldn't come in and help people in their businesses every day. And I see that with entrepreneurs is that business is their child, even though they have other children and grandchildren and whatever else. That business is their child. And so you got to be delicate when you help them understand how to shift that and how to give up some of the things that they've, committed to over time. Because that's the beauty of great entrepreneurs is every single one is ultimately committed to what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that, because when we talk about creating a life you don't want to retire from, that doesn't mean you're staying in the same life. It just means that you're constantly iterating on how you're living that life. And it is in all the major areas. It's relationships, your profession, your financial situation, your physical health, and the spiritual life. And those things all touch. I mean, the reality is when we talk about that, just like you said, almost no one would describe, hey, I want to have a great profession and really terrible relationships with my family. No one would do that. So if we're going to build a life that, but also here's the deal. Almost no one would describe, I'm going to spend 100% of my time not giving any, doing any entrepreneurial value creation. There's a blend that feeds both really, really well. So as we evolve, it really does bring in, when we talk about holistic planning, it is that all about, hey, let's think about the big picture. And when it talks about killing certain ideas, sunk costs is such a dream killer in so many ways, because somebody spent a lot of time, energy, money, and effort. And the deal is, if it's not a part, if you're talking about the rich life you want to have 3 years from today, and you said, if that component wasn't a part of it, would you be happier? And they answer yes, then it's not sunk cost. It was tuition. That's all it was. It was an investment in who you're going to become next. And you need those kind of things in order to understand as much as what you want to do, what you don't. And maybe what you don't want to do anymore, because that's the other thing. Some things have an expiration date on you being a part of your rich life. So I love that work and how you approach that. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about as well, that I wanted you to just spend some time on, because I've seen you like almost create these aha moments in the lives of me and also in the clients that we have the opportunity to work together with. When you are going in and this is a like a story that we come in contact with a lot, is this person that is the founder of the company. They've grown this thing to a place where it is by many metrics very successful, but they are in a place where because the first thing they say when we start seeing is, what do I need to do to sell? What do I need to do to sell? What do I need to do to sell? Because they see that as the only way out from this plateau they've reached, from the burnout they feel, maybe from a lack of ability to invest in other areas of their lives simultaneously. And when you reach that person, you take a bit of a different approach and a bit of a different conversation with them. I just kind of like you to walk through some of the things that you bring up when you're with that person and they find themselves in that place.
Absolutely. The first thing we do is we have a little questionnaire, and it's a free form questionnaire that is, super impressive and professional because it's in Excel, because Excel rules the world, by the way.
That's right. You can do spreadsheets. You can,
you can run your entire world, your life, your company, and even try to run your family until your wife kills you with Excel.
That's right.
We haven't filled this out. It's got 6 categories on it. They rank it in importance of 1 to 10, 10 being the most important, 1 being I don't care about it. And they have to rank each category. It's how we gather the information on what the vision is. We make them spend a couple of weeks on it. And it says, okay, if I were to sell my company today, here's what I want financially out. That's number 1. And we put that number 1 so that they forget about it very quickly, because the next 5 things are what actually determines their happiness in life. Money is an outcome of doing the things you love properly and listening to the people around you that provide the best information and getting there. It's an outcome. It's not a goal. It's not anybody who has that as their financial goal for their company, I just tell them they're absolutely going the wrong direction with it. Because if you do the things that you love right, you'll outpace that goal 20 times up every single time. Second piece is your family life. What does your family life look like when you sell your company, when you get out of the company? What does it look like now? And that one usually ends up, going from, 5 or 6 lines to about 5 paragraphs. because it's amazing how much your family life truly affects your business life, your happiness, your success, your ability to put time into it, your reasons for it. And that thing reflows and always ends up, an 8 or higher in importance. The next one's your employees. What happens to those guys that have been with you for 20 years standing beside you? The ones that, decided not to take a paycheck for 2 weeks there because you couldn't make payroll because your bank was doing such a great job at getting your working capital loan done. You'd gone too hard and too fast, and all those guys stood beside you, and those guys matter. And oftentimes, Tom, for example, is my brother. We work together. We've known each other for 8 years now, and he is as close as my own brother. That's a guy that no matter what happens to me, I want taken care of. And by the way, if something does happen to me, as you're aware, Wes, he's one of the people that takes care of my family too.
Yep.
So we intertwine all of that. And once you start asking entrepreneurs, it always intertwines with some employee in the company or a lot of employees. Then we talk about customers that are stuck with you. What happens to those customers that, you've got somebody that, from a wealth advisory standpoint, you guys have one little tiny customer that, you really like and has always been a good voice in your head, but man, you don't make any money. There's not much that goes into that. But you really enjoy having them. You pass on the business, who's going to take care of that person?
Yeah.
The next guy's going to say, absolutely not. I don't have any history and they're way too small. It doesn't matter. Those things come into that. And we run through a lot of that, and then the legacies in there and some other things. So what do you want the world to think of you after you're gone? And what we find with that is we figure out what they loved about the business and what part they've lost in that realm. What things go away as they did spend so much time in that business that really they wish they could be in. And ironically, what that leads to is we can paint a picture that I always say it's a fifth grader can draw it on the board after we write it up of here's what your life you really want it to be in the business. And then we analyze the business and say, can we get there? And probably 80% of the time, we can't get there with that person leading it to the next level, but they can still be a part of their business if they want to. And hey, what do you love? I love going out there and making sure all of our guys are happy. We have the right teams together. We have doing all that. And I was like, well, how much do you love setting strategy and overseeing financials and doing that? And I hate that, but I have to do that as the owner of the company. Well, why don't we bring you in a partner or hire you people to do that? Oh, you can do that? Well, yes, Mr. Entrepreneur, that's what corporations are around the world.
Awesome.
And it's hard for them to have ever thought about that because they've always been the one that everybody comes to for making the hard decisions and leading the company. That doesn't have to be a forever.
I love that because it does go so in harmony with our theme here. But basically what they're getting, you bring into that place of, no, this isn't crazy. It's just the first time you've heard it, right? It's the first time you've ever believed maybe it's possible. And I love the idea of starting with the end in mind of, hey, what does a beautiful life look like for you? And if you could structure it, forget about how for the moment, if you could structure it any way you want, what do you think that is? Because it gets really easy to begin to kind of live life by default instead of by design. And one of the things I've noticed with you and that in our practice, as you know, is completely built around is this idea of there are more things we could do than we have time and energy to put towards those things. So what matters is instead of just pursuing what happens to be screaming the loudest and damaging the things that matter most, let's talk about first what matters most and back into the things that we can invest our time and our energy and our capital and our money to. Just love that theme. I also like, and you and I have both taken this to heart, is you should always have someone on your team that can extract you from a foreign country. So Justin is my Tom in the sense, Special Forces Green Beret. We'll actually have them fight, I think, one day between the two of them, Justin and Tom, the SEALs against the Green Beret, and just, we'll make it half in water, half out of water. That way it's fair, and just see where it goes. Thoughts on that?
The thoughts on that is I think Justin wins if you give him enough time to prep in advance. The SEALs are good at quick reactionary. The Green Berets are really good at being a force multiplier. I mean, Justin's going to bring about 400 dudes to the table if he's got time to put them together. So, timing is very important to that clash. You need to look at that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Honestly, I think history's already kind of demonstrated the win on that one for us. There's plenty there written in history books and stories to be told. So I'd say the Seals ended up with much better marketing than we did. But as far as what the things behind the scenes, I'm going to vote the Green Beret side won.
I think this deserves another podcast where we bring Tom on, and it's just you two talking the whole time.
Actually, I can just already tell you who's going to win. It's going to be Wes and I sitting in the stands, maybe a little drink in our hands watching this. I think we're the right.
Well, that's where you're wrong, because what's ultimately going to happen is I'm going to use some of my other like skill sets, and we're going to build rapport, and then we're going to turn and like provide a coup. Then it'll be Tom and I against you and Wes. So
yeah, but you forget, loyalty is the number one thing I look for in the team around me, and I have the most loyal human being next to me. Which, by the way, to your point, Wes, is somebody that could extract you from a foreign country. Could extract you and willing to extract you are two different things.
Love that.
And that's one thing that ironically, as we go back to entrepreneurs, if they don't have somebody in the business that is their confidant, that guy will come help my family at 3 a.m. if I'm gone and something there's a void. And that void leads to bad decisions, and it leads to, because you start working in a silo, and you need somebody that's willing to smack you across the face sometimes, tell you, hey, look at this differently, and hey, you're falling down the wrong path. And so one of the things that we do for a lot of people in that scenario is we become, that voice of reason that, hey, every time there's a major decision, make a phone call. You don't have to make it on your own every single time. And what we find is when people have that, it is such a relief of the stress in their lives that the comment comes from home is, hey, you're actually excited about having a hard decision. And it's because I got, anybody who's ever been in that position who, I describe this with Tom, is I got a major decision anywhere in my life. Him and I are going to have a quick chat about it. And I know that I'm going to get good advice. I may not take that advice, which is my own fault. But I have somebody on my team who is a peer, who is capable of thinking at things, on a level that I think is equivalent to where I'm at. And they also call me out on my BS. And because all of us will tell ourselves stories to justify what we want to do in life. And entrepreneurs are the worst because they're really good at taking those stories and making them semi-successful because it's worked their way through it. And so that's one of the key factors to turning your life to making, long-term decisions that aren't stressful, is making sure somebody else is going to, not just let you prove that you can do it, but let you make a decision that you should make instead.
Yeah, I love Patrick Lencioni's work around the working genius. And we talked about it on the show before, but just Reader's Digest version of this is everybody has two geniuses, two frustrations, and two competencies. And the acronym for it is WIDGET. So then it's how work gets done. It's wonder, it's invention, it's discernment, it's galvanization, enablement, and tenacity. And that discernment piece that you talked about, because a lot of times, like I'm what they call an ID. So I'm an inventor, discerner, but it's really tough sometimes to have the same level of discernment on your own invention. And because I'm always thinking of a new way forward, always thinking of new possibilities. And out of 10, there'll be 2 really good ones. And then there'll be 8 that, maybe 2 are okay. And then the rest are just probably not that good. But depending on the story I've been living in and telling myself, I can get really sold and like trick myself. My discernment turns into deception. And so it's still a D. It just is not a good one anymore in feeding that this is a good idea. So having good people around you that are, one, you're giving them the right to speak into your life. I think that's an absolute mission critical component. One of Justin's is discernment, and that's one of his geniuses. And so oftentimes we'll have our team in a room and I'm just spit shopping and spitballing ideas. There's a dance though, I think, that's beautiful, because there's a time to go, hey, look, we need to move on from this one because it's just this is where it's probably not going to serve us well. And there's a time, which is what I really appreciate about our team, and specifically you, Justin, in the sense of, hey, that's one that's maybe not fully cooked, but let's keep going with it. What else? If you're going to do it a little different, if you're going to, so you can actually have the ideation side of things going before you get into the movement of the idea. But sometimes you just need somebody to keep throwing the ball back, to mature the idea to a place that's like, oh, because to your point, it's when you get in that silo and it's just you and you go, okay, here's what we're doing. And you haven't thrown the ball back and forth to actually figure out, do you like the game enough to actually keep doing this? And is it going to produce the results you want? I mean, the Unabomber was a great example of that. If he'd had somebody to just, hey, I've got this idea. I don't like the way things are going. So I'm thinking about sending these bombs. What do you guys think? He probably would have had somebody that could have gone, maybe, why don't we send some letters, just some strongly worded letters first? Because I don't think that's going to lead you to the outcome you want, So I love that idea of the team, of having people. I think this is a big one, though, and I want to talk about this because I know you've walked away from business deals that were extraordinarily financially rewarding because I've seen you, and we've both walked away from these where the owner of that business, two things. One is they were so in a mindset of unwilling to basically give the people the rope that they had in the organization that was necessary for them to get to that next level because they were holding everything so tightly. And two, if anybody, we use the term all around here all the time. Are you the kind of leader that it needs to be, you just throw more touchdowns than interceptions, or are you going to bench Tom Brady when he's thrown one interception? And so just maybe talk about that a little bit, about what you begin to notice, because everybody's nice. Most people are nice up front and they say they want to do things, but what are the behaviors that you see in a person that have caused you to walk away from, I've seen millions and millions of dollars that you've said no to.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. And I'm going to pivot to somebody that, I referred to watch their stuff, and it's actually a relationship influencer. And I don't know what an influencer is, but it's a person on social media because I'm technologically an idiot. But Elise Michael's on there, and she talks about in relationships why people behave a certain way and push certain things away. And there's the father, bond and the mother bond or whatever. Like, it's great to hear her analyze those situations because I see it in business. I don't put it on the relationship side. I see it in business. And what it boils down to is this: if the person sitting across the table, no matter how successful, no matter how great of a human being they are, if they don't trust us and they don't trust the people around them, there's no way that we'll ever be successful. Like, we'll have a level of success and we can make money, but it's money, once again, is an outcome, but it's an outcome from an untenable situation. Mm-hmm. I've had, one client that I've fired through the years, and I spent a year, I lived the contract, but we would give them the best advice in the world that was so simple. And they had such trust issues that they would then go spend 6 weeks analyzing that recommendation that should have been a yes in 15 minutes. And in the meantime, the idea behind it and the support behind it eroded. So then when they would finally say yes, the idea would go poorly. They go, see, I told you it was a horrible idea. And it's like, well, it was great 6 weeks ago when the opportunity was at the door, but now you're chasing that opportunity that is 5 steps down the path, and it's not a symbiotic relationship. And so I need people that trust their employees, that trust that give them that rope. But, it's amazing. What I always tell everybody is this: is you should know what you're great at. And on the, the 365 degree wheel out there, about 20 degrees of that you're really great at, and you should focus on that. And you should make the decisions in that. The other 345 degrees, that should be about 6 or 7 other people or teams or whatever. Yeah. And they be great at that thing. And you should, by the way, limit their ability to make decisions to that little 20 degrees that they're great at. And if you do that all the way around and you trust them and you hold them accountable for the successes, which is way more important than holding them accountable for the failures, and you share that failure as a team, all of a sudden you have people making decisions in areas that you trust them to make decisions in. And they know that they don't need to step out of that circle. So they're like, oh, hey, you've allowed me to be successful here. I'll make those decisions. This is an opportunity. I need a decision made. Can you guys in X, Y, and Z quadrant make those decisions for me so we don't screw up? And that is a level of trust that's like, I don't need to be the guy that does everything. And entrepreneurs often think that they should be 365 and they're horrible at half of that circle. They're just really committed to pushing through it. And if you're committed, you can push through anything. That's the reality of life. But you're going to limit the success on the other side of it, even if it is defined as success.
No, that's awesome. And I think it's good advice too for everybody out there listening. So we have advisors that have been in this business for, 20 years, 30 years. We also have some that are in it for 1 or 2. And so they're building out right now. And I would say consistently, the thing that I want you all to hear, and again, we've said this in different words on the show before, is you continuing to go back to use that triple T tool that we give you, where you rank everything that's involved in running the practice today. We even give you like the workflow through there of a financial planning practice. You rank it 2 ways. You rank it a 10, a 5, or a 1 in is this the best and highest outcome or production capability that I'm doing? Is this the best activity for me to do in this organization? And if it's a 10, that means it's the highest and best use. If it's a 5, it's real important it gets done. Maybe not critical that you do it forever. If you're by yourself, you're doing it right now, right? And probably poorly, or you're stealing from the other thing that actually adds value. And then ones are those things you don't even need to do anymore, or maybe never needed to do to begin with. The second way we rank it is, does it light you up? So what level of joy does it bring? Is it a 10? If I'm doing it, means, man, it lights me up. I get energy from it. If it's a 5, it means I don't hate it. If I could do the more 10 stuff, I'd rather do 10 stuff. And if it's a 1, it drains the life out of me. And so to what she just said, it's like, that is a way to figure out what's my 20% that I can really be great at and spend more time on. And then what you're doing is you're also creating a job description for the next person you need to hire. And I get it. If you're a solo advisor and you want to hire that person, that's going to be first in your practice, it's not crazy. It's just your first. And I know it feels crazy because you're going, but I'm not producing enough revenue to do that. Remember, you don't have to pay all their salary all up front. You get to pay it over the course of the whole year, and you're going to find out real quick if it's working or not. But I would say, Deb, because here's something that I've noticed, and I want you to speak to this a little bit, is that feeling actually, maybe for administrative positions, begins to fade, that nervousness a little bit. But I've seen be in the room with people, and you're not talking about hiring another administrative person. You're talking about hiring a $500,000 to $1 million corporate executive that's going to sit on the team. And I'm going to tell you, it feels as crazy in that moment to that person as a new advisor hiring their first administrative assistant. And I'd just like you to talk about what you do when you're making that kind of conversation happen, and what you go back to keep that person moving in a positive direction.
So I got a great example from yesterday. So we're in the process of buying a healthcare company right now, which, I want to bounce back to something you said about 10 minutes ago is, maybe something isn't the right thing and you need to let it go. When we started our firm, we did a lot of healthcare. And in 2017, I was so disenfranchised with working in healthcare companies that sold off that piece of the business. Well, having that little voice in my head by the name of Tom said, hey, we have an opportunity to pivot and get back into that in the last year. And I was like, I'm absolutely not going to do that. I hated doing it. I hated all those things around it. And he goes, let's talk about why you hate it. And I'm like, no, I hated it. That's all you need to know. Just listen to me. I'm done. And we've now pivoted back into it. And it's actually one of the funner parts of my business right now, which I'm stunned to admit, but I'm loving it again. And it's very successful for us. The timing wasn't right and the staffing wasn't right the first time. So it doesn't mean that a decision isn't the right decision for you. If it didn't work like you wanted, it may not be the right time, or you didn't have the right approach or the right team. Whatever it happened to be, you can always look at things again later. So don't be afraid to cut something off and then look at it later on, and don't say it's dead forever. It's a good lesson for somebody who's hard-headed like me. But to pivot over to what you're talking about here, and helping them understand hiring somebody in those roles, you think about that, and if you've been the one throat to choke, as we always like to call it, for good and bad decisions, letting somebody sit beside you and make those decisions who, you're spending it's a percentage of your money at the end of the day. You're going to take a percentage of your money, regardless if it's, hiring a $60,000 person or a $500,000 person or set of consultants that are a couple $1,000,000, like it's a hard decision every time. What you need to do is decide how to measure that and then measure what that turns the business into. So this company that we're in the process of buying right now, I'm going to temporarily take the lead in the company, which is outside of the norm of what we do, but I need to do that for the comfort of everybody involved. But I can't spend all of my time in this company. I have other companies to run. I have clients to help. I have all of this. So this function of met with our team here to send it and said, okay, who's going to backfill the things I can't do it? We figured that out. Then we look at the new company and we say, okay, what things do we need to achieve to get to where our goal is? And we set our goal and said, I need these things. So I need a right-hand person. And the guys that have been running this company have ran a 60% EBITDA stable company for 22 years, serving Fortune 20 companies. And they haven't grown. They haven't changed. They haven't done anything except run a great business. And I'm going to take over the lead as we buy this. They're going to be on board. And I said, okay, I want to grow it to this. And I painted the picture that we're going to get to in a year. And they're like, that's amazing. And they said, well, how many doers do we need? And I said, need 3 doers to add immediately a total of 6 doers in the first year. Great. And I said, by the way, I'm going to hire somebody who is 3 times that cost to sit in this operations role that produces 0 revenue. And they have spent the last 3 days telling me why that's not the right person to hire, that they can't do the day-to-day. They can't go pull this, SQL report. They can't do this. All the things this person can't do. And they're thinking about it in a doer perspective.
Yeah.
Revenue is created by doers. I need a process and I need somebody to make sure I don't screw this up. And so I'm going to go spend, $250,000 for somebody for this role that they're astounded that that's such a huge number. I can get 3 doers for that amount. I need that person to make sure we don't screw up the next 50 doers we have.
Right.
And I need that person to make me efficient and work in my 20% bubble. I need them to take the other things I'm not great at. And they made the excuse, you can do those things, Deb. We've seen you do those in the past. We've got a 15-year relationship with these guys. I was like, just because I can do it doesn't mean I should do it. And it doesn't mean that I love it. And I explain to people is you can do things on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is you ignore it and don't do it. A 10 is you do it at the perfect level, which, by the way, level 8's ideal because 9 and 10's law of diminishing returns is you don't have to be perfect at everything.
Yeah.
You're Boeing, and I wish they would be a little better at it. But 8's great for what all of us do. The problem is when you're doing things that you aren't great at, that aren't in that 20%, you're going to do them like a checklist item, which means I have them on my list and I got it done. You're going to be at about. And the problem is all those things that I could do, I would do at a level 4, level 5, just to get them off my plate. That doesn't build the healthiest company possible. That doesn't, we're going to grow a company that's a level 5 company, not a level 8 company because of my failures. And so hire somebody to make up for that. And these guys said, no, we just can't get on board. And I said, well, I don't care. I'm the one risking the money. I will put my money up to hire that because I need that. When I have business owners look at that and make those decisions, it's always tough the first time. And in 6 months, they come back and they're like, oh my God, how did I ever operate without this? And it changes that plateau that they're at, the next plateau, because they've released themselves to do what they're great at in the company. And they've supported that with other people who are great to do all the other things around them. That's the next plateau. That's where we want to get them to.
Love it, man. No, this is good stuff. We could go on for a long, long time. Just want to say thanks, man, for being on the show and giving these valuable nuggets of advice and just wisdom to all the people listening. It's going to make an impact on them. It's going to make a big impact on the people that they serve. It's going to make an impact on their team and their families. So if people have questions for you, Dev, is there a place they can go find you that we can post in the show notes?
Absolutely. We can post the website for sending onto there, my email. I think we can put onto there as well too. And anybody can reach out. We respond as quick as we can. I do all those individually. I don't have anybody that does that for me. So love to just coach people, give them advice, and sometimes tell them I don't have an answer for you, but I can figure out the right people. At the end of the day, we love helping people. And I would encourage all of you guys as advisors, if you love helping people too, sometimes there's things that your client needs that you don't provide. Go find it for them. Go help them find that resource. You will never find an opportunity where you help somebody, even if you didn't monetize it, where it didn't make your life better by making their life better. Be that go-to solution for whatever they need. And that's what true advisors are all about, in no matter what field you're in.
Awesome, brother. Love you. Thanks for being on the show, and look forward to having you back soon.
Love you too. Sounds good, Justin. Awesome job. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you, Warren. Or thank you, Dev. Thank you, Wes. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. I think some key takeaways. Remember, when you're giving rope to employees or even to yourself, make sure there's not a noose at the end of the rope. Instead, it should be more like a belay, like what Dev was talking about. Where in rock climbing, if you're not familiar with it, it allows somebody to fall because somebody else has got the other end to make mistakes and room for growth. And doing that with grace versus fear on the other end of it. And then as you dream about what's possible and create that clear vision that we were talking about today, it will likely be crazy to others. And that's okay. Remember this quote from David Goggins, if you're not familiar with, another Navy SEAL, highly accomplished, extremely disciplined. His response to people calling him insane in the ultra marathon and everything he does, he just responds with, "I'm not crazy. I'm just not you." So thank you again, Wes. Thank you, Deb, for sharing your great insights. All of you have a blessed day, and thank you for listening.